Marcus Chun adjusted his scope for the third time in 10 minutes, watching the alien convoy crawl across the desert valley below. The twin sons of Kepler, 442b, cast harsh shadows between the rocky outcroppings, perfect for what he had in mind. 3 years of guerrilla warfare against the Zephyrian Empire had taught him patience, but today felt different. Today felt final. The convoy consisted of 12 heavily armored transports, each one carrying supplies meant for the orbital bombardment platform that had been raining death on human settlements for months. Intelligence suggested that High Commander Vextar himself was in the third vehicle, making a rare surface inspection. Marcus had been tracking this convoy for 6 days, moving through territories that would kill most humans within hours. His rifle, a modified Barrett M82A1 that he'd rebuilt with salvaged alien technology, hummed softly as the targeting system synchronized with his neural implant. The weapon was a hybrid creation, human engineering enhanced with captured Zephyrian energy cells and targeting matrices. It could punch through armor that laughed off standard human weapons. Marcus breathed slowly, feeling his heart rate settle into the familiar rhythm of the hunt. The Zephyrians called humans primitive, barely evolved apes clinging to a backwater world. They'd conquered 17 star systems in the past decade, each one falling within months of first contact. Earth was supposed to be no different. They'd been wrong about that. The lead transport hit the kill zone Marcus had prepared 2 days earlier. Hidden charges detonated in sequence, sending geysers of superheated sand into the air. The convoy stopped, exactly as he'd predicted. Zephyrian tactical doctrine was rigid, predictable. When ambushed, they formed defensive positions and called for air support. It had worked against every species they'd encountered. Humans, it turned out, didn't fight like other species. Marcus watched through his scope as armored figures poured from the vehicles. Zephyrians stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs and natural armor plating that made them formidable opponents in direct combat. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's best efforts. Their tactics were flawless by conventional military standards. None of that mattered at 1,700 meters. Marcus identified his target through the chaos. High Commander Vextar was exactly where intelligence had predicted, directing his troops from behind the third transport. The alien's armor was ceremonial as much as functional, decorated with the honor marks of a dozen conquered worlds. Earth would not be added to that collection. The shot was complex. Desert winds, gravitational differences from Earth standard, and the alien's energy shielding all had to be calculated. Marcus had made similar shots before, but never with stakes this high. Vextar wasn't just another target. He was the architect of the orbital bombardment strategy, the mind behind the systematic destruction of human cities. Marcus exhaled slowly, finding the space between heartbeats where everything became still. His finger brushed the trigger with practiced precision. The hypersonic round crossed the distance in less than 2 seconds. It struck Vextar's energy shield first, the impact causing a brilliant flare of dissipated energy. But Marcus had anticipated this. The round was designed to punch through energy barriers, its alien-enhanced core maintaining momentum even as the shield tried to deflect it. The projectile found its mark just below the commander's helmet, where ceremonial armor met practical protection. Vextar dropped instantly, his massive form crumpling behind the transport that had failed to provide adequate cover. Chaos erupted in the valley below. Zephyrian soldiers scattered, searching for the source of the attack. Their sensors swept the surrounding hills, but Marcus had already begun moving. 3 years of fighting had taught him that the first rule of sniper warfare against technologically superior enemies was simple: shoot and move, never stay in one place. The alien's return fire turned his former position into molten slag, their energy weapons carving smoking furrows in the rock. By then, Marcus was 300 meters away, using terrain that human feet could navigate, but Zephyrian hover scouts couldn't follow. The aliens excelled at conventional warfare, but guerrilla tactics remained foreign to their rigid military thinking. Marcus reached his fallback position as Zephyrian air support screamed overhead. The fighters were sleek, predatory things that could level city blocks, but they were hunting for mass formations and vehicle signatures. A single human on foot, using natural cover and thermal dampening gear, was nearly invisible to their sensors. From his new vantage point, Marcus watched the aliens secure their commander's body. Even from this distance, he could see the confusion in their movements. Vextar had been considered untouchable, protected by the best technology the Empire could provide. His death would send shockwaves through the occupation force's command structure. More importantly, it would send a message to every Zephyrian soldier on the planet. Nowhere was safe from human retaliation. Marcus began the long trek back to base, moving through canyons and caves that honeycombed this part of the desert. The journey would take 2 days, but speed wasn't the priority now. Staying alive was. Intelligence networks throughout the sector would be buzzing with news of Vextar's death within hours. The Empire would respond with overwhelming force, just as they always did. That response was exactly what the human resistance was counting on. As he climbed toward the high passes, Marcus reflected on how the war had changed him. 3 years ago, he'd been a Marine Corps scout sniper with 2 tours behind him, planning to retire to a quiet ranch in Montana. The Zephyrian invasion had ended those plans permanently. Now he was something the aliens had never encountered before, a human who had learned to hunt them with their own tools. The resistance had started with conventional military units, trying to fight pitched battles against vastly superior technology. Those units had been slaughtered. It took months for human commanders to realize that traditional warfare was suicide against an enemy who could rain fire from orbit and deploy energy weapons that turned tanks into slag. But humans had always excelled at adapting. When conventional tactics failed, they turned to unconventional ones. When standard weapons proved useless, they learned to turn captured alien technology against its creators. When open warfare became impossible, they melted into the civilian population and struck from the shadows. Marcus had been part of that evolution, watching human tactics shift from military precision to something more primal. Humans, it turned out, were very good at being angry. They were even better at channeling that anger into cold, calculated violence that struck without warning and vanished without trace. The Zephyrians controlled the cities, the major transportation hubs, and the orbital space around Earth. But they never really controlled the planet itself. Every day, their patrols disappeared. Their supply convoys were ambushed. Their officers died in ways that their advanced sensors couldn't predict or prevent. Marcus reached a communications relay hidden in a cave system that the aliens had mapped, but never fully explored. The message he transmitted was brief: package delivered. Moving to secondary position. Within minutes, responses came back from resistance cells across 3 continents. Vextar's death was already inspiring new operations, new strikes against the occupation force. But Marcus knew the real test was yet to come. Killing Vextar would provoke a massive response from the Empire. They would send their best troops, their most advanced technology, their deadliest weapons. They might even send their elite assassin corps, the shadow operatives who had eliminated resistance leaders on dozens of worlds. The thought didn't frighten Marcus. If anything, it excited him. The Empire had spent 3 years trying to break human resistance through brute force. Now they would learn what humans did when someone tried to intimidate them. They got angry. And angry humans, as history had proven repeatedly, were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. As night fell over the desert, Marcus made camp in a cave that provided both concealment and multiple escape routes. Tomorrow he would continue toward the resistance base, carrying news of a successful mission and preparing for whatever response the Empire would send. He cleaned his rifle methodically, the familiar routine calming his mind. Each component was checked, adjusted, and reassembled with the precision that had kept him alive through dozens of similar missions. The weapon was more than just a tool now. It was a symbol of human defiance, proof that even the galaxy's most advanced military could be hurt by determined resistance. Marcus had no illusions about the war's ultimate outcome. Humanity might win, or they might be ground down to extinction. But either way, the galaxy would remember that humans didn't surrender easily. They would remember that some species fought back, no matter the odds. And tomorrow, when the Empire's assassins began hunting for the sniper who had killed their high commander, they would learn something else about humans. They were very difficult to kill and even harder to intimidate. The war was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. The response came faster than Marcus had expected. 3 days after Vextar's death, orbital sensors detected massive energy signatures descending through Earth's atmosphere. The Empire wasn't sending reinforcements or heavy weapons. They were sending something far more dangerous, the Void Stalkers. Marcus received the intelligence update while moving through the ruins of what had once been Phoenix, Arizona. The city was a graveyard now. Its glass towers melted into bizarre sculptures by Zephyrian energy weapons. Civilian populations had long since been relocated to underground shelters or rural camps, leaving only the resistance to move through the skeletal remains of human civilization. The data packet painted a grim picture. 7 Void Stalkers had been deployed to Earth, each one a specialist in hunting down and eliminating resistance leaders. They were the Empire's most elite assassins, drawn from a dozen conquered worlds and enhanced with technology that made them nearly unstoppable. In 3 centuries of Imperial expansion, no target marked for termination by the Void Stalkers had ever survived. Marcus was about to become the first to try. He studied the tactical profiles as he moved through the ruins. Each stalker was a unique nightmare, evolved or engineered for perfect lethality. HFY the Silent could become completely invisible to all known sensor types. Nexus Prime possessed reflexes enhanced to superhuman levels. Zarathul the Hunter could track prey across star systems using methods that defied scientific understanding. The most dangerous was their leader, designation Omega-7. The file contained almost no information about its species, capabilities, or methods. It had simply never left a witness alive to describe its techniques. Marcus felt a familiar chill run down his spine. This was different from hunting Zephyrian regulars or even their elite troops. The Void Stalkers weren't soldiers following predictable doctrine. They were apex predators who had perfected the art of killing over centuries of conquest. But Marcus had advantages they wouldn't expect. He knew this planet intimately, every cave system and hidden passage within a 1,000-mile radius. He'd spent 3 years learning to turn human disadvantages into tactical benefits. Most importantly, he understood something about humans that the Empire had consistently failed to grasp. Humans were at their most dangerous when cornered. The first stalker found him 6 hours later. Marcus was moving through a subway tunnel beneath downtown Phoenix when his motion sensors detected something that shouldn't exist. The readings showed empty air, but his instinct screamed danger. He dropped behind an overturned train car just as energy bolts began searing the air where he'd been standing. HFY the Silent had found him. The alien assassin's invisibility was perfect, but Marcus had learned to fight enemies he couldn't see. He developed techniques that relied on environmental awareness rather than direct observation. Dust motes disturbed by movement, slight changes in air pressure, the almost subliminal sound of breathing that wasn't quite human. Marcus pulled a modified grenade from his gear, one of his own designs. Instead of explosives, it contained a cloud of reflective particles that would cling to any surface they touched. He rolled it down the tunnel and closed his eyes as it detonated. When he opened them again, HFY's outline was visible as a vaguely humanoid shape covered in glittering dust. The stalker was larger than a human, with too many joints in its limbs and a face that belonged in nightmares. It moved with fluid grace that spoke of perfect muscular control. The alien raised its weapon, a sleek energy rifle that could punch through tank armor. But Marcus was already moving, using the train car as cover while he brought his own rifle to bear. The first exchange of fire lit up the tunnel like a lightning storm. Marcus rolled left as energy bolts vaporized chunks of concrete above his head. His return fire tracked the glittering outline, forcing Keth Vor to seek cover behind a collapsed support pillar. The tunnel filled with the ozone smell of discharged energy weapons. This was exactly the kind of fight Marcus needed to avoid. The Stalker's technology was superior, its reflexes faster, its armor better. In a straight firefight, Marcus would lose. But he wasn't planning to fight fair. Marcus activated a remote detonator hidden in his gear. Charges he'd placed throughout this tunnel system 3 months earlier exploded in sequence, bringing down several tons of concrete and steel. The tunnel filled with choking dust and debris, but more importantly, it blocked the Stalker's escape routes. In the chaos that followed, Marcus implemented a tactic he'd perfected against Zephyrian patrols. Instead of trying to outfight his opponent, he would outlast it. He moved through side passages and maintenance shafts that his alien opponent couldn't follow, emerging at unexpected angles to take quick shots before vanishing again. Keth Vor was fast and skilled, but it was fighting on Marcus's terms now. The alien had to move cautiously through unstable rubble, while Marcus used paths he'd mapped and prepared months in advance. Every few minutes, he would emerge from a different direction, fire a burst, and disappear before return fire could find him. The battle stretched on for nearly an hour. Gradually, Marcus began to notice something crucial. Keth Vor's invisibility was failing. The alien's technology required enormous energy expenditure, and the constant combat was draining its power reserves. The reflective particles had also damaged its camouflage systems, creating visible distortions in the field. Marcus pressed his advantage, using hit and run tactics that forced the Stalker to constantly reposition. Each time Keth Vor tried to establish a defensive position, Marcus would appear from an unexpected direction and force it to move again. The alien was burning energy at an unsustainable rate. The end came suddenly. Keth Vor's invisibility field collapsed completely, revealing the creature in full detail. It was a nightmare fusion of insect and humanoid features, with chitinous armor and multifaceted eyes that reflected the tunnel's emergency lighting. For just a moment, it was completely exposed. Marcus didn't waste the opportunity. His shot took the Stalker's center mass, the enhanced round punching through alien armor to find vital organs. Keth Vor dropped, its weapon clattering across broken concrete. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. 6 more Stalkers were hunting him, each one different and deadly. He quickly searched Keth Vor's equipment, finding several pieces of technology that might prove useful. A personal shield generator, an energy cell that could power human equipment for weeks, and, most importantly, a communication device that might provide intelligence on the other hunters. As he prepared to leave the tunnel, Marcus reflected on what the fight had taught him. The Void Stalkers were incredibly dangerous, but they weren't invincible. They relied heavily on superior technology and the fear their reputation inspired. When forced to fight on unfavorable terms, they could be defeated. The key was never letting them dictate the engagement. Marcus would have to become the hunter instead of the hunted, using Earth itself as his weapon against enemies who didn't understand how dangerous a motivated human could be on his home ground. Marcus emerged from the tunnel system as the sun set over the ruined city. Somewhere out there, 6 more assassins were closing in, each one learning from Keth Vor's failure. They would adapt their tactics, coordinate their efforts, and use resources that Marcus couldn't match. That didn't matter. Marcus had something they couldn't understand or replicate. 3 years of experience fighting impossible odds and winning through sheer human stubbornness. He'd learned to turn every disadvantage into an opportunity, every weakness into a weapon. The Void Stalkers had come to Earth expecting to eliminate another resistance leader, just as they'd done on dozens of worlds. What they would find instead was something the galaxy had never produced before, a human who refused to be intimidated, outgunned, or defeated. Marcus checked his gear and began moving toward his next prepare position. The real hunt was about to begin, and this time, he wouldn't be the prey. The Empire had made a critical error in sending assassins to kill him. They'd just given him 6 opportunities to demonstrate why humans were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. And Marcus intended to make the most of every single one. 2 weeks after killing Kethvor, Marcus had eliminated 4 more Voidstalkers. Each death had been different, requiring new tactics and careful preparation. Nexus Prime had fallen to explosives triggered when its enhanced reflexes couldn't compensate for a collapsing mountain pass. Zarathul the Hunter had been lured into a radiation zone that scrambled its tracking abilities long enough for Marcus to get close with a plasma knife. The others had died in ways that would become legends among the Resistance. Now only 2 remained, Voidstalker designation Omega-7, and something called the Reaper of Worlds. According to intercepted communications, the Empire was growing desperate. Their most elite assassins were being systematically eliminated by a single human, something that had never happened in their centuries of conquest. Marcus studied the latest intelligence reports from his command post in an abandoned missile silo outside Colorado Springs. The facility had been gutted during the invasion, but its underground sections remained intact and heavily shielded. He'd spent months converting it into a fortress that could withstand orbital bombardment while providing multiple escape routes. The reports made for interesting reading. Panic was spreading through Zephyrian command structures throughout the sector. They committed their most powerful weapons to eliminating 1 human sniper and watched them fail spectacularly. Morale among occupation forces was collapsing as word spread that their elite assassins were being hunted like animals. More importantly, human resistance cells across the planet were taking inspiration from Marcus's success. Attacks on Zephyrian positions had increased by 300% in the past week. The aliens were being forced to redeploy troops from offensive operations to defensive duties, something that hadn't happened since the early days of the invasion. Marcus was reviewing tactical maps when his perimeter sensors detected an anomaly. Something was approaching the silo, but the readings made no sense. His instruments showed temperature fluctuations, electromagnetic disturbances, and gravitational anomalies that suggested technology far beyond anything he'd encountered. Omega-7 had arrived. Marcus activated the silo's defense systems, automated weapons that would target anything approaching without proper identification codes. Energy turrets rose from concealed positions, their targeting lasers sweeping the surrounding area. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, the weapons began firing at empty air. Whatever they were shooting had absorbed the energy without visible effect. The turrets continued firing until their power cells were drained, then went silent. Marcus realized he was dealing with something that made the previous stalkers look primitive by comparison. The main blast door, designed to withstand nuclear weapons, began to glow with heat. Something was cutting through 3 feet of hardened steel as if it were paper. Marcus grabbed his gear and headed for the escape tunnels, knowing he couldn't fight this enemy on its terms. Behind him, the blast door fell inward with a crash that shook the entire facility. Marcus caught a glimpse of the thing that entered before he disappeared into the tunnel system. Omega-7 wasn't like the other stalkers. It didn't appear to be biological at all, but rather some kind of living energy pattern contained within a vaguely humanoid framework. The creature moved through the facility with purpose, systematically destroying everything it found. But Marcus was already a mile away, using tunnels he'd excavated specifically for this scenario. He emerged near an abandoned mining operation, where he'd prepared his final surprise. The mine contained something the Empire didn't know about, a cache of human nuclear weapons that had been hidden during the invasion. Marcus had spent months modifying them, turning them into a trap that would eliminate any pursuer regardless of their technology level. But as he reached the mine entrance, Marcus discovered that he wasn't alone. The Reaper of Worlds was waiting for him. This final stalker was the most alien thing Marcus had ever encountered. It appeared to be composed of living shadow, constantly shifting between different forms. Sometimes it looked vaguely humanoid, other times it resembled a massive predatory cat, and Occasionally, it took shapes that hurt to look at directly. The creature spoke without moving any visible mouth, its voice echoing inside Marcus's head. You have impressed the Empire, human. Few beings have survived even one encounter with the Void Stalkers. You have eliminated 5. Marcus kept his rifle ready, though he doubted conventional weapons would be effective. I'm flattered by the attention. You should be. The Empire has decided that you represent a new category of threat. If humans can produce warriors like you, perhaps they deserve consideration as something other than primitives to be conquered. Too bad you'll never get to report that back. The Reaper shifted form, becoming something that might have been amusement. You misunderstand. I'm not here to kill you. Omega-7 was sent for that purpose. I am here to make you an offer. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. What kind of offer? Join us. The Empire can provide you with resources beyond imagination. Enhanced abilities that would make you truly superhuman. Access to weapons that could eliminate armies with a single shot. All we ask in return is that you turn those capabilities against other resistance movements. You want me to hunt my own species. We want you to hunt those foolish enough to resist the inevitable. Humanity will be incorporated into the Empire eventually. The only question is how many must die before that happens. You could save millions of lives by helping us in this conflict quickly. Marcus considered the offer for exactly 3 seconds. Go to hell. The Reaper's form rippled with what might have been disappointment. Unfortunate. You would have made an excellent Void Stalker. The creature attacked without warning, moving faster than Marcus's enhanced reflexes could track. Tendrils of living darkness lashed out, seeking to entangle him. He rolled aside, firing his rifle more to buy time than from any hope of inflicting damage. The battle was unlike anything Marcus had experienced. The Reaper seemed immune to physical damage, regenerating instantly from any wound. Its attacks were equally difficult to counter, striking from impossible angles with appendages that defied conventional physics. Marcus was forced to retreat deeper into the mine, using prepared obstacles to slow his pursuer. But he was fighting a delaying action, and both of them knew it. The Reaper was toying with him, demonstrating its superiority before delivering the killing blow. That's when Omega-7 arrived, the energy being materialized inside the mine with a sound like tearing reality. It immediately engaged the Reaper in combat that turned the tunnel into a light show of impossible energies. Marcus realized that the two stalkers were fighting each other, their conflict so intense that they seemed to have forgotten about him entirely. Marcus used the distraction to reach the nuclear cache. The weapons were old but functional, each one capable of turning several square miles into molten glass. He began the arming sequence, knowing he had perhaps minutes before one of the stalkers finished the other, and turned its attention back to him. The battle between Omega-7 and the Reaper was escalating beyond anything the mine could contain. Walls began to collapse as energies that belonged in the heart of stars were unleashed in the confined space. Marcus realized he wouldn't have time to escape the blast radius. That was acceptable. 3 years of war had taught him that some victories required sacrifice. If his death could take out the Empire's 2 most dangerous assassins, it would be worth it. The Resistance would survive, and, eventually, humanity would find a way to win. Marcus finished the arming sequence and set a 30-second timer. As the countdown began, he thought about the ranch in Montana he'd never see again and the peaceful life that had been stolen by alien invaders. At least he'd made them pay for what they'd taken. The timer reached 0. Nuclear fire consumed the mine, the mountainside, and everything within a 5-mile radius. When the blast faded and the radiation settled, nothing remained but a crater that glowed with residual energy. 3 days later, human rescue teams reached the blast site. They found no trace of Marcus Chun or the alien assassins who had hunted him. But buried in the rubble, they discovered something else, a data cache containing detailed intelligence on Zephyrian technology, tactics, and weaknesses. Information that Marcus had compiled during his campaign against the Void Stalkers. The intelligence revolutionized the resistance war effort. Within months, human forces were fielding weapons that could match alien technology. The orbital bombardment platforms that had terrorized Earth's population began falling to human fighters equipped with enhanced weapons and tactical knowledge. The Empire's response was swift and predictable. They sent additional fleets, deployed more advanced weapons, and committed resources that could have conquered entire star systems. But something had changed in the war's fundamental dynamics. Humans were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. Word of Marcus's victory spread throughout the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, resistance movements that had been crushed by Void Stalkers began to reorganize. The Empire's reputation for invincibility was cracking, and subject species everywhere were beginning to believe that liberation might be possible. The Zephyrian Empire had made a critical error. In sending their most elite assassins after a single human sniper, they had inadvertently created a legend that would outlive the war itself. Marcus Chun became a symbol of human determination, proof that even the galaxy's most advanced civilization could be defeated by courage, intelligence, and an absolute refusal to surrender. Years later, when human ships finally broke the blockade around Earth and carried the war to Zephyrian worlds, they would carry Marcus's tactical doctrine with them. The Empire that had conquered 17 star systems would learn what humans did when someone threatened their home. They fought back. And when they fought back, they won. The war was far from over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The galaxy had learned something new about humanity. They were not a species that accepted defeat gracefully. They were a species that turned their enemies' strengths against them, learned from every setback, and grew stronger with each challenge. The Void Stalkers had been sent to eliminate a single human. Instead, they had helped forge the weapon that would ultimately bring down an empire.